Having time to have reflection. Sometimes when you suffer a setback, it allows you to reassess things and take note of why you may find yourself having to come back, to make adjustment, to overcome. And this applies to former cruiserweight champion Chris Billum Smith, as well as anyone else. CBS, as he's been known to be called, is a fighter that has had some time to reflect and recover from his recent championship unification bout. And he talked at length about what he's gone through and where he is mentally, presently. Let's talk about this and the sincerity of which this fighter found himself in under the circumstances. On Saturday, November 16th, we got a chance to see the return to the ring of former cruiserweight champion Chris Billum Smith, CBS as he's known, when he took on Zurdo Ramirez in a unification bout on a Riyadh season event. This was an opportunity for him to not only garner another title, but to put himself in a position for greater purses and a showdown to pit his wares against the best of the others in the division. Jai Opataya, who's the IBF champion, wanted to face him, but he didn't want to face Jai at the time that Jai was looking to make a fight with him. But he did find himself anxious to take on the likes of Zurdo Ramirez. Now, if you ask me, I believe he thought that Zurdo might be the lesser of the two threats, because Zurdo was coming up from the super middleweight division and light heavyweight divisions, where he had made a quick stopover at light heavy and dropped a decision to Dmitry Bivol. And CBS, who has faced quality opposition consistently, just like in his last fight, which was in December of 2023 against Matus Masternak, and most recently this year in June against Richard Riaport, two fighters that he had title defenses against. The Riaport fight was a avenged loss scenario that saw CBS come out with flying colors, unanimous decision. So, having title defenses under his belt, he felt like a champ going in, as so he should. Now, Ramirez, who had fought earlier in the year in March against Arsen Goulamarian, and he found himself in a unanimous decision there. But I believe it was his 45 fights that made the difference here. Ramirez is a fighter who had fought a number of times, more than a few as champion when he was at 168. But he is another one of the fighters like David Benavidez, who's a lot bigger. Even though he campaigned at super middleweight, he had always been a bigger man. Cruiserweight, light heavyweight, walking around, and 6'2.5" with a 75-inch reach. Billum is 6'3" and has been a career cruiser. And so therefore, I believe he felt that he had the advantage for being at the weight class for a number of years. The fight was a very competitive match, but you could see Ramirez's experience dominating the circumstances. Billum was trying to get in and land his shots, but Ramirez wasn't there to cooperate with him. As he said in a Boxing Scene interview, he said, "I knew how good he was. I genuinely thought that I didn't expect him to be as tough as he was. I thought I'm pretty good at seeing where people are good and their strengths and their weaknesses. And I just thought I'd be able to slow him down, slow his feet down, and stop him pivoting around me and stuff with the volume. He was better with his hand defenses, which surprised me. I thought, you've got to hit this guy to the body. And I hit him a couple of times to the body, but on the inside, he was so good at catching the shots." You see, when you talk about what CBS assessed out of those fights, out of those rounds, with Zurdo, what he was talking about, his technique, his skill set, and experience. And Zurdo, who was embarrassed pretty much when he faced Dmitry Bivol, has picked up on some things that could improve his game. First of all, he realized he's not the toughest man in the world, and you don't have to be. I've often talked about fighters being the smartest, and that's what Gilberto showed Billum Smith when they fought, that he was smarter. He could outthink him, and being able to outthink him allowed him to be able to outwork CBS. And CBS's reflection upon this loss is stating that he realized that he's got more work to do. If I threw a 2-punch combination, he'd catch them both. Then I realized later in the fight, he keeps catching them, so if I put 3s and 4s together, I catch him with the 3rd and 4th shot. So I might go left hook, right uppercut, and he's bumped the left hook off his right shoulder and then caught the uppercut with his right hand. And I throw that quickly. That's a great combination, and he could catch them, and he was very good at it. It also states that hitting the Mexican's body was part of the strategy to slow him down, but that proved a hard target too. And as he endeavored to do that, he became more ragged and tried hard to get back on track. CBS offers, I lost my shape at times, which was one of my weaknesses. But that is because I put a lot of power into the shots and a lot of torque into the shots. So I lost my shape, and that's almost how I create that sort of torque. But the power can get through that way, and you can slow your opponent down in that respect. So there are a lot of variables to it, but he didn't slow down, and he took headshots amazingly well. Well, you see, this again is speaking volumes of what CBS learned against a more experienced fighter, and a fighter who wasn't necessarily smaller than him, but a fighter who was there to be able to compete with him in the trenches. And it's not always about brawn, is it? Sometimes, oftentimes, brains need to be a part of what you do in boxing. And I've talked about this many times over, but I like CBS. They refer to him as the gentleman, and he is quite the gentleman, offering up informations that speak of his shortcomings, because that's being on the correct track to be able to correct yourself. He says the same punishing blows, clean left hooks that has hurt sparring partners in the gym while they've worn headgear had no effect. They just never seem to make a dent. Now and again, you might get a tiny reaction, but then he's able to step back and come on again. And it's just like, well, let's just keep chipping away, especially when it's a 12-rounder. And you're doing that around 6 or 7, I know I carry power. I don't even question my power. I just wasn't able to land clean enough, often enough. You see, again, that is talking about a fighter who is thinking physical. A lot of times, if you use your hand speed or pick up the hand speed because you need to show the opponent a different look, that means taking some power off the shots, letting your hands go, punching more volume, push the guy back, get his feet going in a different place of not the rhythm that he's accustomed to, but disrupting the flow and rhythm. It makes a difference. He says that Zurdo punched to the body well, and his volume was impressive. All the ways I described him in the build-up happened during the fight. I'd probably say that he moved his feet a bit more than I thought he would, and he wasn't necessarily moving quick, but he was just moving a lot and stepping off and stuff like that. He says, my cut eye happened early on, round 3 or 4, and the inspector came over, had a look, and said to the doctor, he's on borrowed time or something like that, or he hasn't got long. And I was like, oh, here we go. And at that point, I wasn't sure if it was a headbutt or a punch because I hadn't been told. I assumed it was a punch. I remember feeling the head. Obviously, the head was going a bit through the fight, but you never know. You just don't want to risk it. He says the cut was not ideal against a southpaw who keeps moving to my left with my eye not being able to see anything. But all I'm thinking about is winning and how to win. But see, this is the thing. The lack of experience of CBS's corner, because at some point you have to be able to coach your charge through the difficult times. The fighter has enough pressure on him as he's facing the opponent. He's going through, he's got to get to a point of confidence and simple instructions to slide over and to continue to keep your lead foot outside of the opponent's lead foot. Positioning. See, those are the little intangibles that he was not effective with during that fight. But what I like more than anything is that CBS is recognizing that there needs to be changes made. And as long as he recognizes that, he places himself in a position to do something about his lack of success in that fight against Zurdo, and he can return and become a better fighter. But what do you think? This is Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you think about CBS's assessment of his loss to Zurdo Ramirez and how he envisions himself during that experience and having time to reflect upon that loss, what he can do to improve and become better going forward, and maybe place himself in a position to get a rematch at some point. Leave comments and let's discuss. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.